we're continuing our conversation from last week with Alexis Milner, and she is just with her channel. She's just humming right along and getting close to that 1,000 mark. And oh,
Yes.
I need to do something here. So if you want to go talk
Okay.
about the caregiving,
Sure, sure. So, hello, everyone, whoever's watching and whoever's going to watch this on the playback. My name is Lexi, and I'm so honored that Bill had me back. This is my third time in a row. I'm so honored. And we were talking about caregivers last time and the sandwich generation. And for me, that was being a caregiver to my mother, who passed away at the age of 89, and then also taking care of my young daughter, who is now an adult and who's 27 now. And so there's so many layers to caring, being a caregiver. And one of the things that we talked about last time was how to be a caregiver but not stopping taking care of yourself. So you still
mhm.
have to, you're doing that role of a caregiver to your elderly parent or grandparent or friend or lover or husband or spouse, wife, whomever. You still have to take care of yourself. So
Yeah,
I
because I
think that's a big component. I think we forget to take care of us first.
mhm.
So it's a big thing because we can't what is the term? You can't give from an empty cup.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because I was like thinking about that because when we went to a memorial service the a couple weeks ago, and many people in mother's church are upset kind of that she shows up only to the Zoom and doesn't show up to but mom has some chronic issues and has chronic
Yes.
issues, and they were exasperated when she had COVID. But the two or
Yes.
three times that she's had COVID, those issues were exasperated, and she doesn't want to come out and say what it is, and so I respect that.
Mm,
But
of course.
one of the members in the church well, so we just have to go to bed earlier. That's all. And then you could come and I think, well, my mother has some chronic long COVID
Yes.
issues,
Yes.
and she says, well, I didn't know that, and which makes getting up early in the morning because I was complaining about, well, church is always at the wrong time for me.
Right.
It's always been at the wrong time for me, and that's because that's the one thing. I'm not all that thrilled about Catholic theology, and I never was.
Hmm.
I have always liked the fact that it has so many options for, especially if you
There are
live.
so many options.
Yes,
Catholic
many-
Church. I mean, we always went to 5 o'clock mass, 5 o'clock p.m. mass. That was
yeah,
my favorite mass on a
exactly.
Saturday.
Yeah,
So I didn't have to get up on a Sunday morning unless my daughter was in the junior choir. So
mhm,
on some Sundays they had to sing, and we had to be at mass at 9 a.m. or
yeah,
before 9 a.m. because she had to get there early. But we always went to mass at 5 p.m. on a Saturday, so I didn't have to get up on a Sunday morning and come to mass. And I
yeah,
that's the mass that I enjoyed. But
yeah.
there are so many different masses and so many different times, and I love that about the Catholic Church.
Yeah, in the church that I was confirmed in, St. James in McMinnville, it had a 5 p.m. on Saturday, which is were
Hmm.
created by people like me. Everybody
Yes.
there couldn't get up in the morning. They couldn't go to bed at night early. Some people could, or they worked. They
Right.
or their works didn't.
Right.
Then there was the 8 a.m. mass, which was populated almost entirely by white people, and there were not no mixes or anything, and it was all
Hmm. Hmm.
type of person too. It was that white person who was most likely to be a business owner as well, and
Right.
a very particular type of person that gets up that time. But that particular type of person is also the type of person that goes to bed at 7 o'clock at night and gets up at 3 in the morning every day.
Right.
And and then it's like that 8 a.m. mass is almost like the middle of the day for them, you know,
Yes.
and they
Exactly.
you know that, and there's that person. That's that same type of person, and that goes to that one. And then the 10 a.m. is the one where that has the coffee hour, and that was the one I really liked to
Yes.
do, because you got to chitter and chatter, and because like one of the
Mm-hmm.
things about Catholic Church versus Protestant ones is that no one ever asks any questions like, "What do you believe?"
Right. Right.
No one ever, no one ever
No.
asks you, "Are you saved? Do you got a
Right.
personal
No.
relationship with Jesus?" You never got those questions.
No.
You could go to if you went to a Protestant church and you were or not a Protestant, if you went to a a less than mainstream church, a
Mm-hmm.
that you would get that, and especially as
Yeah.
it,
Oh, of course. Of course.
yeah, yeah, and, yeah, and so I mean, if you're not a completely orthodox religious person and you want that fellowship with other people, that's something you need. Well, that's a good choice for you. It's just you just don't answer any questions. Nobody and don't
Right.
volunteer any information, and don't.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
then mass
Exactly.
was the I think they have on now on Sundays they have uh they have the 8, 10, noon, and a 2 on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Noon and the 2 are
Oh,
populated all by Hispanics
yes. I
and
think that's the same with us. I think, except there is a 5 o'clock mass on Sunday. I think I want to say the 5 o'clock mass. No, the 5 o'clock is not Hispanic mass. I think the one on early Sunday morning is a Hispanic mass. So I
yeah.
think like 8 a.m. is a
Hmm.
Hispanic mass, or 7:30, something like that. It may have changed since. Then 9 a.m. is the coffee hour mass. So
Yeah,
at
yeah,
9 a.m., that's usually when the kids come and sing, and they do that, and then they have the whole coffee hour afterwards. You get coffee and donuts, and everybody goes in, and chit chats, and mingles with everyone, and then it goes on and on like that. And so I've only ever gone to the 5 o'clock, and then the Sunday mornings when my daughter had to sing, and my
yeah,
daughter was also an altar server.
I
So
see.
we would do a lot of different masses because she always would pick up for somebody who couldn't come, or somebody who couldn't altar serve. So sometimes I was there more than the priest, and my priest at the time was Father Frank. And Father Frank would say, "Why are you here more than me?" And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Well, Father Frank, my daughter's an altar server. What do you want me to do?"
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like I have gone to every mass, and some weekends I was there every hour of the day. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And when I was up in Seattle, I think I mentioned this before that because it was like I had come from a more rural area, and then I went into this city where there was this vast amount of choices, and so there was like a Nazarene offshoot church that I kind of hung out with the people. They were really good people. I liked them, and
Hmm.
like the synchronicities about that was that the married couple, they went to the same college that my mom graduated from, and then there was
Mm.
one of the friends of them, her dad and my mom were in college at the same time, and then they kind of remembering, or he remembered my mother, and so there was all
Right,
these-
right.
but then when
That's
he
nice. Yeah.
when and they had this church called it was Church of the Undignified, and it was a storefront church, but they also ran this community living room thing that was just open. They just had this open door policy, no questions asked, and so like
Hmm.
poetry open mics in that place every week, a couple times a week, different people. Hello, Heen.
Yes.
And then also there was like the if the Seattle Communist Party had meetings in there too. So they had this really an open heart about things, and we had
Right, right.
like that, which is something I appreciated. But when he got his pastor's license, I he asked me if I wanted to join their church, and I says no. I mean, I'm not a I I'm not
Right, right,
not just the way
right.
that was, but that was I don't I think he kind of thought I would join his church, but I said sorry. I'm a Catholic, and
Yes,
what
yes. And I've
what
gone to every church too. I think I have shared this before on my channel, but my mom, growing up, my mom was devout Catholic.
Mhm.
And so was my grandmother and so forth and so on. And growing up in the Virgin Islands, my mother let me go to everybody's church. All of my friends, I could go to everybody's church. And I knew I was Catholic and I wasn't going to change that. But she let me go to everyone's church.
Yeah,
And some churches, like you, Bill, if I had gone with certain friends and they're like, oh, well, are you saved? And we want you to join our church. And I'm like, yes, I am. I am Catholic and I have my own church. But thank you. I'm just visiting.
yeah, yeah. They're just
I'm just
visiting.
visiting.
Mhm.
So, yeah, yeah.
Where I was getting at was that I did one in Seattle. I sang with a a gospel choir for 7 years, and at that church at that particular parish, they had three different communities there. They had their African American community, which
Hmm.
their mass was at 11 a.m. The Filipino one, I think, was at 9 a.m., and then the white person it was Saturday at 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And so
Yeah,
and
now, yeah. In the Virgin Islands, my church that I went to there, St. Anne's, I went to two different churches. I had my Holy Communion at St. Mary's Catholic Church, but I had my confirmation at St. Anne's Church. And St. Anne's Church was more of a like, um, I can't think of the word right now, but it was very Holy Ghost and everything, even though it was a Catholic church. But it was a black church. It was all black. And it was very, when you came into that church, the music and everything, it was not a sterile environment. It was so, the word is not agnostic. The word begins with a C. I can't think of it right now, but I think it begins with a C. But it was such a beautiful church and a beautiful, community, and everybody was really uplifted and everything. So it was really nice. And everybody's like, this is a Catholic church? And I'm like, yeah, it's a Catholic church. So
yeah,
yeah, it was really nice.
yeah, because it's like then I would invite people, and then it would be at about the 50-minute mark, and we haven't even made it to the sermon yet. It's like it's time to go. It's time to go, and
I
it's time
know,
to go,
I
and then
know.
it's like, well,
Well, and that's the thing.
this
Yeah,
goes on till
yeah.
1.
That's the thing that everybody loves on your thoughts that you're going to be out of there in an hour.
Yeah, for the most part, and
Yes.
yes, it's like the St. James Church in McMinnville. They, I think it was the second priest or the third priest that was there. Well, that guy was retired military, and
Mm.
then he was very on the he was very punctual, and he installed a clock in the sanctuary so he could time his homilies to make sure that they were like exactly 9 minutes long.
Yes.
He was
Wow.
very rigid and great. He was a great guy.
Yes.
Great guy. He doesn't talk a whole lot, but he was kind of. He wasn't like he wasn't a real warm person. We'll just say that. I'm sure that he was
Right. Right.
a good person, but he
Yes.
wasn't really a
Yes.
warm person. But anyways, we got sidetracked into like church chat stuff, and which is but
Well,
anyway,
that's okay. We're here on Church Chat Sunday. So
we are. It's after church. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
after church. Yes. After
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
So, so let's see. So what else? Let's see. What else are we gonna? Where are we gonna go with our conversation?
Well, I was like thinking about some of the things you said last week, and it was about that whole thing of um, when an elderly person when they want something, they want it right now,
Yes.
and that.
Yes, it's that instant gratification. You know, you
Mhm.
when you're older, everything I know with my mom especially, and especially towards the end. I mean, she wanted it now. She couldn't wait. And if she was until right up until 89, she was able to pretty much do for herself, you know, like still prepare her tea and maybe her breakfast and that. I would do
Mhm.
everything else. And then it got to the point where the dementia was setting in and she just couldn't do anything to do everything and make sure that she ate and everything because she could go all day without eating because she didn't
Yeah,
remember. And but when my mother would cook or do anything after the age of 88, it was instant. Like she would put the pot on high and then she would go away. And I'm like, you can't walk away from that. And you're putting it on high and it's going to burn because they want it fast.
yeah,
And when I was in college and taking sociology, that was one of the things that we talked about is as you get older, it's that instant gratification. You want everything now, now, now. You don't have the patience to wait on anything,
hmm,
and that's kind of hard sometimes for a caregiver because a caregiver can only do what they can do in the time that they can do it in. You know, they can't always rush. So a good caregiver, which all caregivers are lovely in my
yeah,
opinion for doing this job in the first place. But a good caregiver usually foresees things. So you kind of know your person. You know that every morning, I knew that every morning my mother wanted tea. So I knew that I would prepare everything and I would take it into her so she can have her tea. And I knew that she really didn't like to eat then, but sometimes she wanted a little something. So I would prepare that in advance. I would have things so that she didn't have to ask me. Everything would be right there for her, you know.
yeah,
And so that's how I operated as I was doing that, as I
mhm,
was doing that.
yeah.
So Fatima just came in. Hi, Fatima.
You did. Hello.
Blessings.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, that was. Okay, there was like the other things I had thought because I never really. I mentioned this on Friday, I think, in when I was talking with Hershey about how just may be that as spiritual beings, when we when our brains fail us, that we start to become ourselves, kind of rooted in the moment, and then
Yes.
then I was thinking because this is what I kind of gathered when my grandmother was passing away was is that towards the end the only thing that was important was your and your relationship with family and with friends. That those are the only things were important. Then it made me think, well, what about religion? Is that important anymore? And it's like, no, it isn't. And then it makes me think,
Right.
well, is religion actually important at all? Maybe is some kind of a foundational, framework, and that maybe the amount of effort
Mm-hmm.
put into clinging to these systems of this world, maybe maybe we shouldn't do that.
Right.
We look at the lessons of what do what do the animals teach us? What does the grasses and the trees teach us? Because they were all created by the same spirit that created us.
Yes.
And then you have and you'll think, what was it like? Was it that I think that was something in the Gospels, and Jesus says that something about worry. That worry, how much has worry ever added to your life? I mean, look at the grasses in the field. Look at the birds.
Right.
What do they worry?
Right.
They're just worried about
Yes.
where they're going to get their next meal, and that's about it. You know, and
Right. And that's about it.
and and and, and then you're thinking, well, well, if they got everything, well, what about you? Why? What are you worried about?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly. Exactly, Bill.
yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. And
I mean, Yeah.
I agree with that. And worry, I don't worry about anything, and I haven't for years and years because, to your point, like what you're saying, what is the point? If
Yeah.
we don't believe in a higher power and everything, if we believe in that, then what are we worried about? What are we worrying about? So
Yeah.
that, yeah, it negates you having to pray and do different things. I feel like it negates that when you worry.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't worry generally. I just don't.
Mhm.
Everything happens. Everything will happen as it should happen. Is what I feel. Is what I feel.
Well, it's like I've always kind of as I get older, I was thinking like, you know, that, and I mentioned this more than once on this channel too, that all of these structures that we've made here don't exist on don't exist anywhere else but here.
Exactly.
And you know, and so it's like we so this is where why you can't a person can be a religious universalist and say that they're all true, or they're all true and they're all false, because there's something about them, every single one of the religions, that is false, and there's something about every single religion that is true. And in that you say is that how much of that crosses over into the next world. Because it just may be all here. It just may not exist, because if an alien came in and 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 is would they be bound to the same morality as like the a Seventh Day Adventist church, or would they be bound to the same? And then, you know, 'cause what was before and what's going to come later, and I mean these are all,
Right. Right.
you know.
Right. Exactly.
And so, and
Right.
as we get older and we lose in our brain, um our 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 brain starts to wear out a little bit, and you start to see what is really important to a person,
Mhm.
and that maybe that's all that is important. And that's kind of just what my point is. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Fatima says she agrees. Yes. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a positive and negative in everything. In
Yeah,
everything.
there is. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Was that anything that they talked about in those sociology class? Because you have a master's in sociology, right? Or
My master's is in education, but I did
education.
take sociology to get my bachelor's degree. I took a few sociology classes, and mostly in those classes, we dealt a lot with seniors and how um, how it is when a person gets older and how they perceive different things as you get older. So there was a lot of what one of the sociology classes was about that I took, and how um, so many of us, you know, Bill, there are so many of us who maybe have never had children. Like you've never had children.
Yeah.
My daughter doesn't have any children yet. She's still young, though. She's only 27. So I don't know if she will have children. But one of the things that we talked about in sociology were a lot of the seniors now who never had children because they chose not to, and maybe they had a spouse, maybe they didn't, but now they're at this age of they need a caregiver, and they don't have a caregiver close to them because they never had a child.
Yeah.
And that's what we are. You and I are the children who are here to caregive for our parents,
Yeah.
right? And thank God that your mother has you because your siblings are other places and
Yeah.
have children in different families. And for me, I do have two older siblings, but they weren't my mother's kids. They were my mother's stepchildren.
I
So they
see.
weren't here to care for my mom. So it was just me
Hmm.
and my daughter. at the time who was younger than she is now. And so yeah, it's really difficult, and that's something interesting. I always say, my teacher used to always say that, it is good for somebody to at least have one child, because when you get up in age, you will need somebody to make decisions for you and to care for you or different things. And when you don't have somebody, my teacher was, my professor, she was someone who, she was a caregiver, um, like advocate. And she also was an advocate for a lot of the seniors who did not have a family member or anybody to take care of them, because some of them were only children, which means all their parents and relatives have long gone, because now they're at the senior of the age, and then they didn't have kids, so they have nobody.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I just thought that was that's such an interesting topic. That's like a whole nother topic. But what do you do when you have no one and you reach that certain age? There's no one there for you because you were born into a family where you were the only child, and maybe you were born to a family who had you late in life. And so your parents are gone. They never had any other children, and they had you. And they didn't have grandparents. Like when I was born, I had two grandparents. My mother's mother passed away when she was in her 20s,
Mhm.
when my mother was in her 20s. And so I had my grandfather, who was my mother's dad. And then I had my grandmother, who was my father's mother. But his father had passed away, my God, way before I was even, way before my siblings were even thought of, before he even got married. So I didn't have that set of all. Now, when my daughter was born, she had all of her grandparents on both sides, including great grandparents on
Yeah.
her father's side. Her father had everybody. He had both sets of grandparents and great grandparents. So
Yeah.
at least my daughter had that, although she never really knew any of them at all, because her father left when she was one. So we didn't, that relationship didn't sustain. But I
Mhm.
always wonder about that. What do people do, seniors, that they have nobody?
Yeah.
And that's something that you really have to start preparing for now, of who's going to make those decisions for you. So you would have to have an advocate, which is what my professor was.
Yeah, I've kind of have thought about that, and I've always thought about my nephew, one of my nephews, the youngest nephew, and um, but I don't know. I really don't know, because that situation can also happen with a parent who wasn't a very nice person,
Yes.
or a
Yes.
parent who was an alcoholic or something like that, and
Yes.
and then you're that has through their narcissism, or their
Hmm.
alcohol, or the drugs, that exasperates these tendencies that maybe if you were sober you would keep all that stuff in check, and so that you
Yes.
wouldn't be an abusive, an emotionally abusive or an abusive person. You would
Hmm.
keep all that stuff in check, but because we're like the alcohol, usually, always, a lot of times, it it takes the wall between the conscious and the unconscious mind and makes it really, really thin.
It does.
And so all of that stuff is there, and yeah, it's there, and there's all this stuff that's
Hmm.
there in every human being, but you have this, you have ways to keep all that stuff in check, and a sober mind is the best, and a sober mind and body is the best way to keep those darker impulses that you have in check. And and so so
Yes.
a person who has lived their life with alcoholism will often not be will not it's not always the case, but sometimes those people are mean, and
Yes, they can be.
and if they're like the surviving,
Mhm.
and then they've pissed off all of their children. Their children may not advocate for them at all when they get old. They may not want to. Just, oh, we'll just shove
Right.
dad in a home someplace, and let some strangers advocate for him, or not.
Right. Right. And that's so true. And that also ties into, like you were saying, the alcoholism, or that if that happens, that could be the same also when you have a parent who is on the mean end of dementia or Alzheimer's. Not everybody is. My mother was not, but I
Hmm.
have a lot of friends who, at the end stages, their parents had Alzheimer's or the beginning stages of the dementia, and their parents were so mean.
Yeah.
And being ill anyway tends to make somebody mean, especially when they're older, because they
Hmm.
don't know how to articulate what they're going through and that kind of thing. But when dementia and that sets in, that's so hard for a caregiver, because when you have a parent who you're doing everything for that parent, and maybe you have siblings. In my case, there was nobody else. It was just me and my daughter, and I was the only child. So I was the one to make all the decisions and do everything. But when you have other family who are not around and they could care less, but then as soon as that something happens to that parent, and after you've put in all the work and the blood and the sweat and the tears and you're doing everything, once that parent leaves us, then here they come to swoop everything away from you, like you didn't even exist, like you didn't even care for
Mm.
your mom, or you didn't do the best job that you could do. But where were they when you were doing it in the first place? If they wanted to, they could have come and they could have helped. And so
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's a whole nother spectrum of it too. But the
Yeah.
meanness, of the dementia, and that is really hard for a caregiver. It's very hard for a caregiver.
Hmm.
Thank
Well,
you, Mama Sushi. Thank you, Amanda.
yeah.
So yeah, but it's so hard. Caregiving is such a hard thing. And especially if you do have other siblings. If you have siblings and everybody's spread apart, and you have that one sibling who is left to take charge, which is like your instance, Bill.
Yeah.
It can be difficult. Can be difficult. And
Hmm.
not that your siblings don't want anything to do or help with your mom, but they can't at the moment because they don't live close,
Well,
and they have children, they have grandchildren, they have other things going on.
yeah.
So it's difficult. It's difficult.
Hmm. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what was it was
So,
something I was thinking about with this was the and well I
what are your thoughts?
well my thoughts were is that there's this, well, what was I thinking? I don't know, I forgot, I lost my train of thought.
Mhm. That's okay. We've talked about so many things.
We have talked about a lot of things, and yeah, but I was well, I guess if we were to segue against to something else, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it today, but I'm not asking for any sorries or anything like that. I'm just like stating something, is that
Yes.
on the fourth Saturday or fourth Sunday of June in 2012 is when my father was killed in a car accident, and that's today. So,
Oh, I'm so
so
sorry, Bill.
well,
Yes.
I wasn't looking for sorries or anything. I was just saying this is what this day is, and
Yes.
so I um the actual date's coming up in a couple days, but this was
Mhm.
like I had and so my father did not. He died at 74, and so he didn't get the same opportunities to have his memory and everything taken away from him.
Right. Right.
And
My
because
father was also 74 when he passed.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
my dad, who was like well, he was a very brilliant person, and so he was doing mathematics all the way up until he passed away, and all the way up, yeah. And then and
Yes.
he had gone into business with my sister, and he had left retirement at like what 70 years old, 70 years
Wow.
old, and because he had broken his body when he worked. And no,
Yes.
there's there's some of the bad health genes that were passed along, the migraines and certain neurological things that, and so that were as that both me and my sister have migraines, but my sister also has some other things going on
Mm.
related to those neurological things. So some of it,
Yes.
did dad have like neurological issues, or was it that because he was so impatient when he had his mill, and then they needed to move this motor, and then so he'd ask his business partner and say, "Hey, can you help me move this 500-pound object?" And so his business partner, "Yeah, let me go get a lever." And then he'd come back like 15 minutes later, and my dad had already moved the object. And this is something he'd done over and over and over again, find a way, and then he broke his body by being impulsive and being unable to wait just a minute for somebody to come
To
by
help.
and help. And so
Mm-hmm.
I saw it like I saw him move a 200-pound object in his, and he was dragging a leg behind him because one of his legs stopped functioning, and he had drop foot, and it was like it would be and I saw him move this object, and he says, you know, and I watched it. He just used leverage and everything, and just he moved this heavy piece of steel about probably weighed 200
Wow.
pounds, and this when he was like 74, he did this.
Wow.
And yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and so,
girl.
it was just that there was that drive, and that, but then, you know, he didn't sleep very well because he had broken his body and it was always in pain. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, welcome Tina,
Wow.
welcome Elizabeth, welcome Tapestry of the Unseen. Yeah,
Hi, everyone.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah. Bill, your dad was such a strong guy. He sounds like he was a strong, strong guy up to the end, or at least he kept doing. He kept persevering. He kept doing and doing and doing. Like you said, even though his body was broken and everything, he still did. He didn't give up. He still kept doing and doing.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah, and it was
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
it was that's I just wanted to just to because of the day. I always seem to remember.
Yes, of course.
the-
Of course. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Of course.
Mhm.
Of course.
Yeah, and I still
You
have a
know,
stuff that was of the things that were on his body, when I got what I got from like the like a set of keys and some
mm,
his old flip phone. Now I was like, if I was start talking about relics,
yes, you got all your dad's stuff.
this is something I found in the ditch near where that accident happened.
Mm-hmm.
May have come off his truck. It may have been in there, but
Oh,
it probably wasn't. It probably wasn't. It probably wasn't. And there is another something else I have. I have
yes.
a
Elizabeth said it could be like a time capsule. So
time
true.
capsule.
So
Yeah,
true.
I do have like
Yes.
oh yes, this is something that did come off his truck. This is a piece of his truck that is just part of an
Ah.
amber light, and but it may not have. I like to think because like for the first week, so like right after he had passed away, and before the funeral, and every day I would go out to that ditch and I would sit.
Mm.
sit in that ditch, and it was just like, well, Dad, this is where you pass. We didn't get it. We didn't get a chance to be there with you. We didn't get a chance to say goodbye.
Right.
But then
Right.
the funeral, I didn't
Yes.
necessarily have that. That I haven't didn't do that, you know. And there were so many
Yes.
who,
Yes.
like neighbors. Well, every in this neighborhood that I live, almost everybody that lives here lost somebody on the highway.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, just yeah. Well, because this highway that I live on, that I live right on, is one of the most is really dangerous, and so like the last person who saw my dad alive also died in a car accident too.
Oh my goodness. And the same place?
Similar place. It was just
Similar.
a different. It was a no. It was probably like 20 miles away, but in a different direction. And
Wow. Yes.
then and like my neighbor who they're they're dead now, but their youngest daughter was decapitated by in a car accident. They just
Oh
she
my
was
goodness.
driving. She was like 17, 18 years old, and was driving way too fast, and then the car slid underneath the tractor trailer and just sheared off the whole top of the car. And then it's just like everybody that lives down here knows somebody who died on the highway,
Wow.
and so look at um has either either a sibling or a child or a cousin, and so it's like, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, that's
Wow, that's just so mind-boggling.
yeah,
It's
well,
like, oh my goodness.
it's like,
That's a lot of synchronicity. I don't know if we want that kind of synchronicity, but oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's like, then they worked hard to change the highway. So like where Dad died, they changed the road and they made the corner such that you could actually see around it. But before then, you couldn't see it around it. And
Oh,
there,
so it was a blind.
yeah, it was a blind corner, and it's flat. The road is flat, but it has these little bumps, and it's no passing for like 12 or 15 miles. But when people do, you take your life into your hands if you pass, because you might pass right into one of those dips, and there's a car coming and there's no way to get out of the way, and so like at that corner where my dad died, I think 10 other people died there too. And
Wow.
you know
Yeah, that's a dangerous corner. My goodness.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of sounds like the roads on St. Croix in the Virgin Islands where I grew up.
mhm,
That's how the roads are there, and you drive on the left. So when I learned how to drive, I learned how to drive on the left. The steering wheel is the same as here, though. We don't have the
mhm,
opposite steering wheel, but you drive on the left instead of the right. And there are so many turns and winding roads and everything, and just 2 lane roads. And
mhm.
so, yeah. And there are a lot of those there too, where people have had really bad accidents, or roads that are like close to a cliff, so when you go off, you're down in the ocean type of thing. So yeah,
well,
wow.
and like my oldest niece, I probably shouldn't talk. I not mentioning her name, but her she's lost two men to car accidents.
Yeah,
And
yes, that's just awful.
well, one of them was just somebody she dated for like a week or two, but then like he like went over a cliff and ended up in the ocean. But this was like after they had stopped dating. And then
Hmm.
two, that's kind of like in the territory of like, like your Maggie from Northern Exposure, and then nobody wants to date Maggie because everybody who dates Maggie ends up dead.
Yes, right, right. Right.
Yeah,
Oh, your poor niece.
yeah.
Well, it wasn't her fault.
No, it wasn't her fault. Okay,
It
so I'm not.
wasn't her fault.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about that anymore. And so we've kind of talked a bit. We have stuff on the caregiving because we're both caregivers or have been.
Yes, yes. Well, let's change the tune. So let's talk about the joys and gifts of caregiving. So the joys and gifts of caregiving are there are three that I pulled here, but unexpected moments of grace and connection. Because you
Mm,
have those unexpected moments where your person that you're caregiving for, and maybe it's somebody who is in their stages of dementia or Alzheimer's, but you have those moments where they appreciate you or they recognize you, or you have that just that really moment of connection. And I had that with my mom when she was in the hospice. And there was like a moment of connection for us because she did it when she went into the hospice. She knew who I was and she knew who my daughter was, but there was one day where she didn't. And I was in the room with her and she's like, "Who is this?" And she called the nurse and she's like, "I don't know these people." And I'm like, "Mommy, you don't know me?" And then she looked and she's like, "It's just my daughter." So I thought that was so cute. And but we had a moment there where she really, she would look for me when I was there with her at night. And I'm like, "I'm still here, mommy. I'm not going to leave you." And she's like, "Okay." And then once they would come in and give her sleeping medication, and
mm,
as soon as she would go to sleep, then I would sneak out, and I would come back the next day. And but those were sweet moments. So you have those sweet moments, and then also it could be a chance to heal generational wounds that
mm,
you build, or to build deeper understanding as to why your parent or your spouse or whomever you're caregiving care being a caregiver for. It's a moment to kind of heal those wounds between you, because we all, like I tell the kids who are in my lives every day, they come in the lives, and I have children in my lives that are 7 years old that come to my live streams every day.
mm,
And a lot of them, they have built bullies at school, or they have my mother doesn't love me, I'm not her favorite, I'm not whatever. And I have to let them know that us as parents, when you become a parent, it doesn't come with a manual. There's no book that tells you how to be a mom and how to be a dad and how to be empathetic and how to be caring, or there's nothing that tells you that. You either have that sometimes or you don't. Some people have a little bit more difficult time. So I try to tell them, you need to love your mother and your father doing the best that they can for you at
yeah,
this moment. And when you become an adult, you kind of understand that. And this is where that point hit home for me. It's like a chance to heal those generational wounds. I mean, my mother and I, we were like this. She was my ride or die for me, no matter what. But there were times when I was growing up that I felt like my mom really wasn't there for me, or maybe she didn't understand something that I was dealing with or going through. And this is a time for you to put that aside. It's time to put these things aside and, you know, just sit back and think about all the things that your parent has gone through and all the things that they have withstood and everything to get to where they are. I mean, everybody on my mother's side of the family, and I was sharing with Elizabeth, 'cause she just came back from her beautiful trip to Puerto Rico. And my mother's father, Pedro Morales, born and raised in Santurce, Puerto Rico, my Titi Sophia, all my three older uncles were all born and raised in Puerto Rico. And then the three younger kids were all born and raised in New York. And that included my mom. And, getting to get know how somebody was raised and what they went through and different things, you're building that because you want to know these are our ancestors, and
yeah,
they're becoming our ancestors every day. When we lose our parent or whatever, now they're our ancestors, and getting that understanding or trying to heal those wounds, it's really important. It's really important, I feel, to try to make amends, to try to make amends, because this is the end stages of life for so many of us. And
Mm-hmm.
the final one was, as I was teaching the kids in the live, is teaching your children what love, responsibility, and dignity look like.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're a caregiver, like my daughter saw my caregiving of my mother, and how I handled everything for my mom, and how I took care of my mother without anybody else's help. And she saw that. And I hope that that gives her the courage and everything to know what to do. God forbid that I end up in this that stage of my life. And I'm praying that I don't. And I'm praying that I'm going to be here to way past 100,
Yeah.
looking like I'm 25. That's my goal. But
Well,
I just wanted to be the best caregiver that I could be, because I wanted my daughter to see that, these are our parents, and we get older. And when your mother gets old, when you're born, your mother takes care of you and feeds you and changes your diapers and cleans your scrapes and your knees, and wipes your eyes when you cry and all of that. And then, what that saying that you're twice a child. So when your parent becomes that child again, when it got to that point, my mother used to call me mommy. And before she
mm-hmm.
passed, she started calling me mommy. And
Mm-hmm.
I was it broke my heart, but I knew, because she was so close to her mother. And when her mother passed, my mom was in her 20s, and that just like crushed her. It just
Yeah.
crushed her. So when she called me that, I was thinking about that, and it just opened up so many things, and how could you be mad at somebody at that stage? How could you be mad at them, or anything? Caregiving should be a chance to really put that aside, no matter what things have gone, because it's a frustrating time for us. When you're a caregiver, you get frustrated by the things that your loved one is doing, or maybe, with them having a loss of memory and different things. We just get fussy at them, and they say something, and sometimes you lash out and whatever. But we have to understand that they're not in their right mind anymore, and it's our turn to just really, really, take care of them and show them that love, show them that compassion. And in turn, if we have if we have a sibling or a child or whatever, to let them see that, to let them see that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, the
yeah.
other thing that just be it between, I think it was between our last conversation and this week, that I had the realizations that I made, or maybe it was really, is that, and I was mentioning this to an old friend, because his father is losing his memory, and no, his so my dad, he's gone. He's gone. He's not there anymore.
Yes.
And then I was
Yes.
thinking, no, I was thinking, because I mentioned that, one of the things that happens when people get old is you start to see them before you were born, and so you
Yes.
get a version of your parents, who they is what they were like before you were born.
Yes.
And so you get a chance to get to know your this person for the first time, because a lot of the sense of humor may start to come out, which never was there before, because when they were in the mode of caregiving, and in the mode
Hmm.
of taking care of, or building finances, or doing all that stuff, in
Yeah.
that mode, there wasn't any time for humor,
No.
time
Right.
to be, just to let it all hang out, and be, and just,
Yes.
and who, and just, and because, when before the children are there, they were that way all the time, and they had a sense of humor and
Yes.
everything. And I didn't necessarily
It's
see,
my mom.
yeah, see the sense of humor. and,
Right.
and it's
Right.
like as an example, just, yeah, just the other day, because I got last I think a week ago Friday I got a 10-pound turkey from the tribal food bank, and which just happens to be the nearest place to get food in the area because I live in a
Hmm.
food desert. And so your grocery stores are all 25 miles away from wherever you want to go. There are
Right.
closer ones. There's there's a casino that's not very far away, and so if you want like slot machines and you want beer and hamburgers, yeah, that's there. Uh, you know,
Right.
if you want
Right.
if you want to
But
go
no grocery store.
you want to go, or the grocery stores that are there, the prices are like twice as high as everywhere
Mhm.
else. But nevertheless, so I got this, and I cooked it on Monday, and then immediately right after, because I usually do this, and I get a bird or something. I serve it up, and then I shove whatever I can't take off of it. I shove it in a crock pot and begin turning it into stock broth. And welcome. I can't pronounce your name,
Let's
but
see.
and so I got like, and then the next day I was like, cleaning that up, and then I got most of all the bones thrown away except this leg bone, and I had tossed it in the sink, and I forgot to throw it away. Well, and then like how things are, you get busy doing the next thing and think, oh,
Hmm. Hmm.
or something like that. It's time for me to do something. And so you run off and do something else, and you hadn't quite cleaned up the kitchen completely. And then mom goes in there, and then she puts the dishes away, and then I go later on. I go in and finish putting dishes in the dishwasher and so forth. And I'm looking in there. And I said, "What is this leg bone doing in the silverware thing?" You know, and, and it was just like, okay, all right. So this would be something like what a kid would do, or something that I might do
Right.
myself.
Right.
I might do myself, and
Right.
just,
Right.
and she says, well,
Right.
yeah, I thought it was funny actually, and
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
I wanted to say, Elizabeth said, every time I visit my dad, we work on some part of my inner child wounds. Yes,
yes,
Elizabeth.
yes,
Yes.
yeah,
When my mother and I, we worked on a lot of things as I entered my 50s. And a lot of things that I had to tell my mother that she had no idea of, the way that she treated that situation for me. So I would have to tell her, this is what happened when I was a child, mommy, and I didn't appreciate this, or I didn't. And so she did apologize to me for several things. So, Elizabeth, at least your father is still here for you to work on that. And that was me too. In my 50s is when I started working on my inner child wounds with my mother. And it made a big difference, really did, because they don't know when they do stuff, they don't even think about it. We have to tell them what hurt us and how we feel that it should have been handled at the time, because our parents were somewhat clueless, and we
hmm
grew up in the time, or at least me, being a child born in the 60s, 1964. I grew up in the time where my mother, it would go out with my aunts and uncles and stuff, and they would leave us kids in the car, and they would be in a bar, maybe somewhere drinking, whatever, and us kids would be sitting in the car for an hour. That's the kind of stuff that I grew up with.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Or they would be at a relative's house or something, like, I'm going in for 1 minute to get so and so, and I'll be right back. But then they wouldn't come back. And so you're
yeah.
sitting in the car. Like nowadays, you can never leave a child in a car. I'm lucky that I'm still alive. I talk about that with my cousins all the time. We're lucky that we're all still here. We were not kidnapped or something, right?
Well, there, there is those things, but like if just on a different note, the amount of independence, because what am I? I'm a Gen Xer. I was born in the '60s, so yeah, I'm a Gen Xer, and
Yes, yes. I'm a
and
boomer. I'm a boomer.
and so I'm like 8 or 9 years of age. my grandma lives. My dad's mom, grandma, she died I think in 1980 or 1982. I think it was 82. And I'm gonna go visit her. And so what mom does is she puts me on a Greyhound bus that comes this way, and then goes up Highway 101 to um yeah. I'm running a variety show here for newcomers. This isn't the only thing I do, so it's a variety show. It's a talk.
Yes.
I'm doing a talk show. And
Yes.
talk shows are always variety shows. Anyway, so I'm like what, 8 9 years of age, and mom puts me on the Greyhound bus, pays the driver, and because you couldn't get a ticket here, but they had to go to the next town, which was probably 25 miles away, so they buy a ticket, but they put a note. She pins a note on me and says, "Okay, this is so and so. This is my phone number. And this is the phone number of where he's going to, and make sure he gets off at that location." And so then you stick you in the front seat, or and then right behind
Right.
the driver, and then you go, and then you get off, and then so it's just like, and then that was the first time, but after a while, you get to you after the first time, then you can navigate a little bit better on your own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've been given that agency to that to do that. And so I was traveling on the gray I traveled on the Greyhound bus as a preteen and then as a teenager, and everything. And whereas, like, a lot of children these days, their parents drive them to school, or
Yes. Oh
all
yeah. Oh
the way up
yeah.
until they're able to get their
Yeah.
own driver's license. They're not really allowed to
No, they're not.
navigate
Then,
themselves.
and we talked about that last time, Bill, because I was telling you that I have been flying by myself since I was 5 years old.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
flying from St. Croix to Puerto Rico, see my family, or flying from St. Croix to New York to be with spend the summers and Christmas and spring break with my dad. And yeah, yeah. So yeah, kids today, oh my God, no. No. I wanted
yeah,
to go to the chat though. Elizabeth said on day 3 she was getting ready to build a boxing ring.
yeah. I know. I know. Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
Kind of
and Eliz
sparring with everyone.
Lila said that she was also left in the car for hours. Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Mama Sushi said that her dad was abusive to her mom, and she finally confronted him casually when she was 25 or so, and it went well. And
Yeah,
that's so good. And it's so good when it goes well, when your parent is receptive to what you have to say, because now you're an adult.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
when we're a kid, they don't have to listen and we could get scolded and all that kind of stuff. But now I'm an adult. So you can't spank
yeah.
me. You can't put me on punishment. You
Well,
kind of have to listen to what I have to say.
because a lot of times what happened there is that your boys that were abused or whatnot, they get to be 16, 17, 18 years old, and then they take their dad and they run him out there and they knock him on his ass because and because there's well, you're not going to bully me anymore, and then that could be like the end of it, once the
Right.
once
Right.
their dad gets beaten up by their child, because
Right.
how many times has that happened in history, and probably it goes way way back into the way back time. And so it's like, for instance, my dad had a dog that was a part lab and black. It was a brindle colored dog. There's part pit bull and part lab, and the dog loved to fight.
Wow.
Dad just loved to fight. And dad just kind of, he would take it to work with them, and then the other people that worked at his mill, they had dogs and everything, and then the dog, they would get into it and fight. Well, when Brenda dog got to be about, I think, 9 years old, she lost a fight, and then within like a year that dog passed away. And
Wow.
it was just like, I lost, and now I'm not top dog anymore. And yeah, and sometimes that there's that change happens, and maybe it happens much sooner than one expects. Is when cases of parents that do not know how to parent well and are mean and and so forth, because you can only push someone so far
Yes.
before
Yes.
something happens, and so there are always unintended consequences of everything that you do. you,
Always.
you know and
Always.
and so you
Always.
and the human brain is not expansive enough to see every possible outcome. It's like if you're playing chess. I like to play chess. I haven't played chess in a long time, but when you are watching a chess game, you can see many of those unintended consequences that are happening. But when you are a player, it takes an
Right.
exceptional mind to do it, and that's why those chess
Yeah.
are so brilliant. Is
Yes.
they often can, but still they're playing the game, and there's still places that they're missing, and they can't see it all. And so, like, if we were, I know we're not, when if you talk about world events and you talk about, if you are
Mhm.
a leader who doesn't listen to anybody
Right.
because you are or you believe, only, because we've all seen these people at a job place who will are not receptive to other people's ideas, and unless it's there,
No.
feed
Right. Unless it says yes.
you have to feed the idea to them in such a way that they think it's my
It's
idea.
right. Exactly.
And then they think, oh, that's a great idea. I wish
Right.
I would have thought of that before. You know,
Right. Right.
and so this is the type of person you don't want to be the leader of a nation, because that type of person is incapable of really learning and capable of listening. And when they are a leader of the country, that's when we get terrible things happen.
Mhm.
Can is
Mhm.
they can't see and they can't learn. and
No.
but it's essentially it's that guy who's mean to his kids, and then and he thinks they can be mean all the time or whatever, and then out of the blue, once their boy or whatever is 16, 15, 16 years old, he's a big kid, and he just beats the crap out of his father, and his father thinking, well, where did that come from? What did I do to deserve that? Well, and it's that lack of self-awareness, or maybe
Yeah.
it's like a person who, when they look into the mirror, do they really see themselves?
No, they don't. They
You
don't
can't
see themselves.
you can't see, because it's like the dog comes up to a mirror and starts barking at it. It's like, well, that's another different dog.
Right.
uh,
Right. Yeah, they
yeah,
can't see themselves. They can't see themselves.
yeah. Well, is Destiny 222 your daughter?
No, she is not.
It's not. So that's
No.
somebody else's kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she is not my daughter. And I'm sorry, Aaliyah, honey, but I'm in the middle of a chat. So I'm
Oh, yeah,
sorry that I
yeah.
spelled your name wrong. And this really isn't the chat for you either, Aaliyah.
All
So,
right.
but anyway, let's get back. Let's get into what's happening here because we're missing some people saying things.
Yes.
Um, let's see. What did Lila said? Oh yeah, Lila said her mom would be hours late to pick her up from soccer practice. I know that.
Yeah.
I'm always early to pick up my daughter from anything because my daughter doesn't drive still. And I'm always
Mm,
there like a half hour, hour early because my mother didn't like that when anybody was late, especially when I started driving and I would pick my mother up at work. If I wasn't there when she was walking out the door, I was late. So I'm always
yeah.
early to pick up. I'm always early to pick up my daughter. And
Mm,
Mama Sushi said that my brother is turning, her brother is turning into her father with his anger.
yeah.
That they all have PTSD, but she's the only one who's open to talk about it. That's
Yeah.
good, Amanda. At least one of you is open to talk about it because that's difficult. It's so difficult. It really is.
Yeah.
Amanda said that it was a big secret, something we weren't allowed to talk about growing up. Right.
Mhm.
Because all of our families, there's always some kind of family secret. And what you're told as a child, at least what my mother always told me as a child, and being a single mother, what happens at home stays at home. And you're not supposed to say anything outside of the home about what we do in the house. And I
Yeah.
think that's like a lot of kids back at that time, how you were brought up, right?
Mhm.
And so I understand that so much, Amanda, so much. And
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of shame, like Elizabeth said, a lot of shame comes with that. And it really, really does. It really does.
Yeah.
So, yes, yes. I do love this conversation, though. We had such a good conversation. This caregiving conversation is so good because there's so many layers to it.
Well, there
So
is,
many layers to it.
a lot of, and almost everybody has experience with it in one fashion or another.
Yes,
It's a
yes.
it's a universal kind of a thing because that's a part of being a living creature is that you are you're not just like dropping the egg off in the environment and it kind of pops out and then skitters away in its own it's all but there's a a, a growing process and so
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Yes, there is. There
so
is. Elizabeth said she always explained it's not a secret. It's just private for the family only. But yes, it can be so confusing to children. It really can be.
yeah.
It really can be because you're thinking, it's a taboo. It's a taboo subject, and we can't talk about anything that happens at home. And no, of course, it's our family business. But when it borderlines on things being abusive or other things in the home, that can be very confusing. Very confusing.
Well, but then sometimes, being open with what goes on, being transparent with other people, it can, because, then you think, oh, well, I'm not alone here because everyone
Right.
else is experiencing something
Somebody
similar,
else's experience. Exactly. Exactly.
and well, there was like something that was like, you know, in one of the families in the neighborhood there, they lost their boy a few months ago, who's exactly my same age, and but
Oh, wow.
the parents are they're very private as far as
Mhm.
their own family, but they also are really good at you know. Anyway, I don't want to say any more than that, but it's like they're they're they can't if you because I had this conversation with a person, and if you can't talk about this stuff, and then if you have some issue like you're a recovering alcoholic or something like that,
Mhm. Mhm.
easy to step back into these things, these substance abuses, because in order to cope with these issues, because you don't know how to cope with it because you can't talk about it because it's a private family matter, and
Right.
private family matters stay private. You don't like talk about the stuff that everybody goes through. You can't talk about what everybody goes through, even with your neighbor and but everybody no, understands. Most everybody understands something about that, and
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah. Yes, and it's true. Sometimes when we say things or if we come out and say something, somebody else is like, "Wow, I had that same situation or I went through something like that." And it opens up a conversation. And then people know, like you said, Bill, you're not alone.
yeah,
No, you're not alone. You're not alone.
and
Yes, yes. Not alone. So,
what is
let's
Leah
see.
bring some issues to their family daughter, a little bit of son. Yeah, well, what I'm thinking about
Mhm.
with Mama Sushi and her brother and his anger issues. I had anger problems growing up because my dad had a real hot temper, and you as children you kind of pick up on what your kids do, but I had to do a lot of forgiveness work in order to not have that bad temper.
Mhm.
I was also bullied as a child, and I did a lot of forgiveness work. And one of the things that I did in that is I started going to my class reunions, and
Ah.
so going to my class reunions, that took a lot of and so it's like, well, I haven't really missed any class reunions.
Mhm. Mhm.
You sit and share a meal with people who may have once, when they didn't know what they were doing, they were bullying you or whatnot, and
Right.
but that's also, you kind of find out when you get older, you kind of see, welcome, Bobby, and you kind of get to see a little bit of perspective about, if you like just pull yourself out of yourself a little bit,
Mhm. Yes, exactly.
and you go and you watch how children behave, and they don't it's not unlike how wild animals behave, and you watch how herding wild animals behave. They behave really very similar in that they or you're like turkeys. We have a lot of wild turkeys. They beat up on each other all the time, and so there might be just a lot of that. So a lot of those behaviors just might be hardwired into the human body. It's like a genetic memory. And and though they're genetic memories, and so when we were running around, before fire, you needed to be toughened up, and so we toughened each other up so that we'll be a little bit more tougher when we run across that big lion, and or that I don't doesn't mean to feel like it's being kind of a cold or trying to rationalize this behavior, but um I'm not rationalizing. I'm just kind of saying that maybe that is where that these behaviors actually came from, that it came directly. They evolved with us.
Right.
They
Right.
were when we were once innocent, and we were running around, and we were running around with the rest of the animals when we were Enkidu. If you remember the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and if I can talk about that with the
Sure.
Gilgamesh, and you have Gilgamesh, who was part god and so forth. He was the king of Ur, I think it was. I'm not really positive, but it was in one of those. And then Enkidu was this guy who was running wild with the gazelles and running with the creatures out there, and this man, it was a hairy man running, and he was like, stealing things. He was stealing women, or stealing stuff. And then and then there were all the people in the kingdom were complaining about this Enkidu guy, and harassing and everything, and why is they doing that? So they go to Gilgamesh, and then Gilgamesh goes into the temple, or they find out, well, here's what you got to do. You got to go find out where the guy hangs out, and then put a and then present him with a beautiful woman, and pretty soon, he'll be attracted to that beautiful woman, and then he'll lose all of his hair, and then he won't do this anymore, which is what they did, and which is what happened. And so this story is kind of like this. Okay, this Enkidu character is human beings before they were civilized.
Ah,
An uncivilized human being.
an uncivilized human being.
Yes, an uncivilized human being. And so these behaviors that we have are, I think they are behaviors that may come from, actually, because because you think about, where did we learn this stuff in the first place? Because they've been passing them on through generation to generations, and that a lot of these negative behaviors are just things. I think they're almost like on the level of like genetic memories, and the memories of the body, and so forth. That the body,
Mhm. Mhm.
we don't really think about that
No.
we have instincts as well, and there's
Right.
instincts, and and because if I were to like segue to a conversation that I heard on Next Level Soul, because I started tracking this Next Level Soul guy. I think he was like 50,000 subs, and he is now like at a close to 2 million subs now, and but so this one guy, and it was talking about the the next world, and that and these are these in like in some of these NDEs and kind of people having experiences in this realm, and so people come and become a human being because they want the challenge to see if they can tame this wild beast. And you come and you have an experience. I guess because I've talked about this once before, actually multiple times, of
Mm-hmm.
this whole simulation kind of a thing. And I mean, if I go into the metaphysics of the yeah, okay, thank you, Leah. And Christine is here because we had yesterday the paint off yesterday. But you have this sense of, I just took this conversation someplace totally different. But the taming of
It's okay.
the taming of the human being. But we kind of started there with how we have all these negative things that happen, and then I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
intellectual on how do you explain that. Maybe that would be a different conversation with someone else or with you or someone in the future. Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah. Anyway, there's so much to talk about, and there's so much to
I
talk about.
know there's so much. There's so much to talk about. But well, are we ending this conversation? Is that what you're telling me? Are we
I can
ending?
go with one more point, and then we'll go on for like another 10 minutes, and then we can end the conversation and start. We can try it again, in a few weeks and talk some because you have a lot more, and I want um
Sure. Yes. Yes. Well,
uh,
let's leave with this the quote that we left with last week, which is we are the bridge between generations, between needs, between love and exhaustion. But even bridges need maintenance. So, or they will collapse under the weight. So
mm,
let's remember that when we are being a caregiver in whatever capacity that is for us, that we take care of ourselves, that we heal ourselves, we take care of ourselves, we love ourselves, so that our bridge doesn't break under the pressure, so that we can go on to care for who we need to care for and do the things that we need to do to help our person who we're caregiving for.
yeah.
So I love that quote. And I always want to end on that note because a lot of times we don't take care of us. And
Hmm.
we need to take care of us first so that we could take care of someone else. And that's really, really important. Because,
Yeah.
like I said in the beginning of this, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Hmm.
So when you're a caregiver, you have to take care of yourself first in order to share that love that you have and that empathy, compassion, and everything with the person that you're caregiving. So it's really important. It's very important.
I was just thinking because I do want to talk some more about this. And so next weekend I have my family reunion. So I'm not gonna do any content next weekend.
And I
Um,
also have the Sisterhood of Seasons is coming back next Sunday with Nancy of Crohn's Intuition and Althea the Soul Whisperer.
yeah.
So us three crone ladies will be back doing our show, and next Sunday at 3 p.m. New York time, it will be on the
Mhm.
Soul Whisperers channel, and it will be about aging. And Nancy at Crohn's Intuition will be leading that conversation on aging. So we'll be
Mm,
talking about that, which kind of goes into this conversation that you and I are having, Bill.
because I think where I wanted to talk about next and would be is those things, because you if you don't talk about this stuff, it's easy to get bottled up inside,
It
and
is. It
and
is.
what of what to expect
Mhm.
as a caregiver, and what to expect as a person grows older, so you don't spend all your time grieving for the fact that your
Yes.
is
Yes.
disappearing right before your eyes. And that's kind of, I think we
Yes.
need to talk about that the next time. And
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's talk about that on the next time.
would
Next
that
time
maybe
we can get together.
could you get together in 2 weeks, or would that be longer away?
Well, I don't know yet, but I'm sure we could do 2 weeks. We could do the week after
Yeah,
next.
that would
So
be
the
two.
first weekend of July, I guess that would be.
I guess so. The first weekend of July in 2 weeks. Well, actually,
Okay, so let me go. Let me go to the calendar.
is that July 4th? I know Independence Day is like one of my favorite holidays of all time. Actually,
July
July,
4th is on a Friday.
yeah, so that's July 6th. Yeah,
So
I love
July
it. Yeah, yeah,
6th
yeah. So
would be,
we'll reconvene my after church chat in 2 weeks at 12:30 Pacific time.
okay, so that'll be 3:30 New York time for the people that
Yeah,
don't know Eastern Standard
yeah,
Time.
yeah.
Okay, so July 6th, people, I will be back here with Bill talking about what to expect.
What to expect? What to expect?
What to expect.
Yeah,
Yes,
expectation. The
what to
next,
expect as our loved ones get older.
but I also might be helpful for us, because as we get older, maybe we can see that these are things that will be happening to us, and that way we won't be as fearful about
Yes.
the loss of ourself
Yes.
as we go on. Yeah,
Yes. Yes, that'll be great. That'll be great. Yes, Lila. Lila says she's looking forward to seeing Althea and Nancy again. So yeah, that's going to be good next week. That'll be good. Bill have a fabulous family reunion.
yeah. Well, it's on Saturday, but it's like a let's see, what does it take? It takes to drive up the coast like that. It takes upwards of 3 hours to go. What is it, like 90 miles? But
Okay, yes,
it's not
yes.
it's not that far road miles. I mean, there are other ways to go, but there's no easy way from I can go from here and hit the Sunset Highway and go across, which is a straight shot, or I can just go the quickest distance, but that distance takes like 2 to 3 hours. Of course, you have to stop along the way a few times, because
Right, of course.
you're driving up the coast, and you want to
Right, right.
go have coffee and bathroom breaks and whatnot and everything, and doggy
Yes,
bath.
bye, Elizabeth. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, we will be back in 2 weeks, folks, to continue this conversation.
yeah. And I want to
Yes.
ask everybody to, they have a blessed week, and make
Yes.
sure you support Alexis in her efforts because you must be getting some pretty good watch hours too on that thing on your show.
Yes, I am. I'm getting averaging, it depends. Sometimes I get maybe 55 or more for a show. It just depends. Or
Yeah,
40 something hours. Yeah, it depends because I get this week I've had one of my lives had over 4,000.
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So another one had 3,500. My one today had over 1,000. I
hmm
think over 1,500, I think. I'm not sure. So yes, I'm getting pretty good watch time hours from that. So It's energizing me. I'm tired, but it's energizing.
Well, it is when you have to, but you also have to remember you need to take care of yourself
Yes,
and
absolutely. Absolutely. And I definitely am. I am getting my rest. Most definitely. Most definitely.
well,
So,
you're in the build phase and the growing phase, and there will be a point in time when you'll level off.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I won't
And
be
so,
doing this forever. I mean, this was a challenge for me to go from June 1st to June 30th doing a live every day. And I've
yeah,
been doing a daily video every day since January 5th anyway. I post every single day. So I've been doing that for the last 6 months. So this is just an extension of that. And I still post a video every day. Even though I go live every day, I still post a video. I post shorts, whatever, because I made that commitment to myself. So
mhm,
this is all for me basically. But I really want to get my channel monetized. And I once that happens, then I will not be doing a daily anything anymore. I will probably be twice a week doing my videos and twice a week going live. And I will be focusing on my NASM, on my studies to get my certification in wellness and life coaching. So
mhm.
that's what I'm getting ready to start fully once I finish building my channel. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that I'm done building my channel. My birthday is August 9th. So I think I have decided to go live every day until August 9th. We're going to see how that works.
Well,
But
maybe you might think about just doing it like 6 days a week.
yes, 6 days a week is 6 days is good, and taking a day off, and which for me would be Sundays. So
Yeah,
that probably is what's going to happen because I
yeah.
really want to continue with my studies, and we like to go swimming on Sundays, my daughter and I. So there are things that I want to do, and
Mhm.
so I will probably after this month, after the 30th, I will cut down to where I'm only going to do it 6 days a week.
Oh,
And
okay.
then once I get to, it takes, according to the YouTube gurus, it takes 3.5 months of going live for 3 hours a day, 6 days a week, in order to get your full 4,000 hours and over 1,000 subs.
Oh.
And I'm halfway there to both. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
already there. I'm going to be there this week with 1,000 subs. That's already in the cards. But my watch time hours will be. I'm close to 2,000 right now. So I'm
Hmm.
halfway there. And once I get to 3,000, then I can have super chats on my channel. So
Yeah.
that's something that I'm interested in doing as well.
Well, I'm like stuck at like 2,500 hours because this time last year, I think I was doing 100 hours a week, and so I'm dropping 100 hours every single week because you're on this 12-month period. So
Yes,
every day you're dropping off because it's calculating this time for a 12-month period.
right.
Every day it's just dropping off, and so I figured that if I had because I last year I think I started going live every day and sometimes almost twice a day in July, and then
Hmm.
I had that one video in I think it was like July 8th or 9th that got like 10,000 views, and I got like like 100 hours of watch time on just that one video, and and
Right,
you know
right.
and so
Yeah, Bill.
it's just that challenge kind of a thing, and
Yes, yeah, it
um,
is. It is a challenge. And I am challenging myself to do
yeah,
it. And I'm not going to quit until I get to where I want to be. And then I'm
yeah,
going to help my daughter build her channel.
yeah.
So that's what we're doing. But I'll be the first one to get it done. And then she'll do hers. And she's got almost 300 subs now. So she's working on her channel. But she works 12-hour days. So it's harder for her. I'm home every day. So it's
Yeah.
easy for me to build my channel right now. It's not, this is definitely not for the faint of heart, and everybody cannot do this. Everybody cannot do this.
You're right.
And I'm just amazed that today makes 3 weeks since I started doing a live every single day. From June 1st till today makes 3 exact weeks. and I have gained 600 plus subs
Yeah,
in 3 weeks.
I, 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 wa- I may not actually click into your live, but I'm actually watching, going through and looking and to see where people are at,
Right.
and and so forth. And because a lot of times I've just been really so tired, it's been kind of hard to to keep up. And so a lot of times I'm
Yes.
just looking in, and then okay, I'm gonna go do something else. Go mess around on the lawnmower or do something like that, and
Right,
do, do,
right.
do some
Well, I
care for me.
appreciate you for popping in. I
Hmm.
appreciate it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll be by my birthday, I'm sure that we will be way into our close to the 4,000 hours. And I've only been back on this platform since January 5th of this year. So all
Mm.
of my hours will count for 12 months. And I will get that way before September.
You
If
said
not by September, I will definitely be monetized. So
so.
that's my goal.
Yeah. So the gurus say, you say 3 hours a day if you go
Mhm.
live every day of the week for three
Right.
hours.
If you go live 3 hours a day, 6 days a week for 3.5 months, or 3.4 months is what they actually said. They, and I got this from vidIQ. I think it was the vidIQ channel.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
they said that once you do that, you are guaranteed to have your 4,000 watch hours and over your 1,000 subs.
Well, and so
So,
I'm.
and I guess that they've all done it they've done it to prove that this is how it works.
Well, but there's
And
also
they
the
have several channels and they all have
yeah,
millions of subs and
they
whatever.
do, and it also helps if you have another channel that's been monetized, that things I don't know if that's true or not, but so like I got my new channel, Tools of Fortune, and I did my first live stream last night, and I was just gonna go on
Yes.
for like a half hour, but I ended up going on for 90 minutes, and so I was kind of tired at the end of about 90 minutes, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
tired.
because it's very draining. It takes a lot out of you. When I
Yeah.
did that live the other night at 10:25 till midnight, I thought I was gonna die. I will never do another live like that again at night. I will do one, like I told you, for my birthday. Um, the Lionsgate portal on August 8th, and I will do something that night and go into my birthday August 9th. But other than that, I will never do another nighttime live stream. I didn't get a lot of I think I maybe had 200 viewers, and usually my live streams I get more than 1,000 or at
Yeah.
least 600 or more. So it wasn't worth it for me to do it at that time of night.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I won't ever do that again. But I will do the one for my birthday to bring in my birthday, and that'll be it.
And when is your
So
birthday coming up?
August 9th.
August 9th. Okay, let me just.
August 9th.
Okay, Lexi's birthday, because I'm writing everything down, is August 9th. Okay. So yeah, it's like yeah, anyways, well, thank you for being here with me and
Thank you,
spending
Bill.
this
Thank you for
afternoon with me.
having me. I really enjoyed myself. And
Yeah.
thank you to everybody that came and participated in the chat.
Yeah, Tapestry of the Unseen. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you, Lila.
More Intuitive Me, Day by Day Christine, because she was with me yesterday.
Yes. Yes. That was a beautiful live yesterday, too, you and Christine.
And then we had Aaliyah Destiny 222. Thank you. And uh Wild Raven, thank you for popping in for a minute or two.
Yes, Bobby. Bobby Boo.
For Fatima, welcome.
Yes. Love
Ichi,
you, Fatima.
for let's see, I mentioned Aaliyah. Now that there was a name I couldn't pronounce.
Oh, yes. There was another person in the chat. Yes.
Argwal, I think that was the last name on it.
Yes. He was from India. They were from
India.
India.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And my sister popped in for a minute or two. I
Yes. Your
don't know
sister
how
was
long.
here.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And we had Tarot and Oracle for the Soul. She's going to be on my channel coming up soon, like the week after next.
Ah,
Okay. I have to make the thumbnails today. Oh, there one. I'm going to have to leave one other thing that everybody needs to know. This is actually a very important piece of information, and
yes,
is that um everybody has to change all of their passwords on everything because 16 billion
oh
passwords have
yeah,
been
from
put
AT&T and everybody. Oh,
everywhere.
there were
So
so
yeah,
many.
so
Yeah,
so so
yeah,
I like heard that news at 3 o'clock in the morning. I thought, I just don't have the energy to do it, but so I'll just mention on my show for
yes,
everybody that everybody, and because it's such a pain in the arse to
it
change the
is.
words and everything else,
Yes,
and
yes.
everything. And then make sure
Yeah,
that you
that's important. Everybody change your passwords. Change your passwords.
and two-step authentize
Yes,
everything.
I have that on mine too. I have two-step
Yeah,
authentication.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
you make sure the first place that you go change your passwords is your access to your bank accounts.
Right.
And then if you whatever your YouTube account is that has a credit card or something attached to it, you want to change it there too,
Yes.
or whatever wherever you have financial information attached to. Because I don't have it attached to this particular account, but
Right.
I have 4 YouTube accounts in my, and I'm not going to say which one, but nevertheless, it's like there's
Right. Right.
uh and then and to do that you have to, that's like a priority sort of thing. You get the time, you got to start working on changing your passwords on all of your
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
just about everything that you visit on a, but maybe that core site that you go to, you don't need to change the password on that because, or that LinkedIn account that you don't really use, or whatever,
Right. Right. Right.
um
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we got. And I just my final thank yous, and have a great, wonderful week. And thank you very much, Lexi, for being sharing this part of my afternoon here with
Oh,
me. And
you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'll see you on July 6th.
yes, for in 2 weeks. All right.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Bye.